Hi everyone, welcome back to the Flicks Files. Today I thought I would do a very different video and not talk about any particular movie, but instead ask you all a question. I'm sure quite a few people who have subscribed to my channel are film collectors that have a very large collection of Blu-rays. And certainly some of the channels that I've looked at, some of you guys have absolutely massive collections of films. I mean, I thought I was pretty good. I estimated that I have about 1,100 movies if I had together all of my Blu-rays, 4Ks, and the films that I have as digital files, because interestingly, there's quite a number of movies that I've always wanted on a physical release, but for whatever reason, they're not available. So I've had to keep them as digital files. But I have a significant amount, but I'm sure that there are plenty of you out there that can easily beat my number, if not more, if not double it. And the question that I want to ask you all is, so this is kind of a video inviting feedback, is how do you decide which movie you're going to watch? So when you're in a movie mood and you've probably got like a spare evening on your hands and you think, oh, I'll watch a film. How do you decide when you've got such a large collection what movie you're going to watch? That's my question. So I'm going to tell you what I do. Now, I would say whenever I think, oh, I'm going to watch a movie tonight, 50% of the time I'll know what movie I'm going to watch. Now, that may be because I've been thinking about this particular movie, or I've seen something on the news, or I read something that day, or something triggered a memory that reminded me of a particular movie. And I've probably thought, oh, I've not watched that in ages. I'll watch that the next time I watch a movie. So 50% of the time, I can go to my movie collection and know which movie I'm going to pull off the shelf and watch. So what do I do for the other 50% when I don't know what I'm going to watch? Now that for me was a problem because I would start looking at all my films and never come to a decision. I would spend more time just browsing and probably just give up. And it got to the point where I think, well, this is ridiculous. You know, the amount of films that I have that I can't make a decision. Now, if I buy a movie, then that would obviously be the next movie that I would watch. So that's that decision made. So again, I'm only talking about the 50% of the time when I'm going to watch a movie when I don't have a particular movie in mind. So what do I do? Well, I came up with a system, and you probably think this system is absolutely bonkers, but it works for me, and it kind of helps me fill in that other 50% of the time when I don't know what I'm going to watch. Now, I'd be lying if I said this system has a 100% hit rate. So I'll explain what I mean by that when I explain the system to you. So what I did, firstly, all of my films I have catalogued. So I have a spreadsheet with them all on. Now, I guess I did that for insurance purposes if the house burnt down in a fire, or if we got broken into and a lot of them got stolen. But I'm one of those collectors, I think I've just got one of those sort of minds where I always know if I have a movie or not. So if I go into HMV and I'm browsing films, I'll know if I have a particular movie without having to look it up on a list. Because I've said this before in my intro video, but I have kind of a history with every movie that's behind me. I don't tend to blind buy films. I only buy movies that I've already seen. So, you know, back in the Blockbuster days, that was easy because I'd rent a movie out, and if I really liked it, then I would then have bought it on DVD. But in the modern era where we all rely on streaming, then I guess it's sort of Netflix and Amazon Prime are my go-to repositories for watching new films. And then if I do watch a movie that I absolutely adore and think, oh, that was fantastic, then I'll definitely buy it on physical release. So that's how I do it. I don't go to the cinema. I don't do the cinema anymore. It just drives me insane. It's too expensive, and I can't be coping with other members of the public in a confined space. They're either looking at their mobile phone or they're eating and making a noise or kicking the back of your seat. No, it's just a nightmare. I've got a kind of thing with people that eat in cinemas, and I know 99% of people do, but I always think you go to a cinema to watch a movie. If you want to eat, go to a restaurant or go to a cafe. Don't combine the two. Don't sell foods like crisps and bloody popcorn and the noisiest things you can eat in a cinema. But still, I know that's my own neuroses. That's why I've not been to the cinema in a good long while. So, as I said, I have a spreadsheet with all of the films that I own on that spreadsheet. And I thought, well, how long would it take me to reorganize that spreadsheet by the year that the movie was made? So I would end up with a spreadsheet with the very oldest film that I own right at the top and the very latest movie that I own right at the bottom. And it didn't take me that long to break them down by year groups. I found a really good website. And off the top of my head, I think it's called thenumbers.com. And it breaks down all movies that were released on any particular year. So I already kind of knew by looking at a movie the decade it was made in. So it was quite easy for me to just band them into separate decades and then use this website to break them down into year groups. It took me, I'd say it took me about 4 hours over a couple of days to do this. So not a huge amount of time. So the end result was I have a spreadsheet with all of my films in, categorized by the year that they were made, starting with the oldest. Now, as a result of doing that, I now know what the oldest movie is that I own on physical media. And I have it behind me. And the movie is Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. And that was made in 1931. And I have that as part of this box set. I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but it's the Universal Monsters box set that has things like Frankenstein and Wolfman and the Invisible Man. And Dracula is in that box set. So that's the oldest movie that I own. So I then proceeded to use this spreadsheet to help me in the 50% of times when I couldn't decide what movie I was going to watch. So again, if I already had a movie in mind, that's fine. I just watch that movie. If I buy a movie, I'll watch that movie on the day that I've bought it. But when I don't know what I want to watch, I just go to this list and just watch the next movie on the list. So I'm effectively working my way through this list. Now, as I said earlier, I wouldn't say this was a 100% hit rate, in that there are some times where I'll think, oh, I'll watch a movie and I don't have a particular one in mind. I look at the spreadsheet and I'll think, oh, it's a comedy, for instance, and maybe I've not had a good day that day. And I'm not in a comedy frame of mind. So perhaps I'll just delay it a day and try it again tomorrow. But on the whole, this system works. And it works really well. And I've got quite a way through my list because I did this, oh gosh, it would have been over a year ago. So already I'm now up into the 1980s. So I had a small handful of films from the 30s. I don't think I have any movies that were made in the 1940s. I have a small handful of films in the 50s, double that for the 1960s and 70s. And then it's interesting that when I categorize them, I realize that the majority of the films that I own are from the 1980s. And there's probably very good reason for that, because they were kind of my formative years when I really got into movies in a big way. And there were a lot of movies that were released in the 1980s that I really like. that I've owned on just about every format. You can buy them on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and then 4K if they're available. So I'm now up to the year 1988. So I can look at my list and I know what the next movie I'll be watching if I don't have a movie in mind. And that movie is Frantic, starring Harrison Ford, which interestingly is a movie that I already did a video about on this channel. So if you wanted to see what I had to say about that film, you can go back through some of my very early videos and find that and give it a watch. So that's how I do it. So what do you guys do? How do you decide when you don't have a particular movie in mind what you're going to watch? I'd love to know. Now, it may be that some of you will never have this problem and that you can just look at your collection and go, yeah, I'm going to watch that one. And brilliant if that's the case. But I think with my mind and the way it's wired, I've always said my mind is slightly bonkers, but I needed some assistance to help me on those days when I couldn't make a decision. And the other benefit of doing this that I realized was that eventually I would end up spinning every single movie that I own if I work my way through this list. So as I buy a new movie, I will slot it into the list in its correct position. And I thought, yeah, I'll watch every movie that I own, which is great because it means that I've not ever bought a movie that I haven't watched, so I haven't kind of wasted money. Because if that was the case, and if any of you guys out there with very large collections have movies that you bought and you've not seen, I would ask you why. Unless you bought them in bulk and it would be impossible to sit through them all, not long after you've bought them. But why would you buy movies of that number and never really watch them and just like have them taking up space on your shelf? So yeah, it's an interesting concept that I came up with. And as I say, it works for me. It may not work for you, but that's just how I do it. So I'd be interested to hear what you think to my system and what you do. That was the main thing. How do you guys make that decision? So yeah, that was my little video for today. As I say, a very different one to what I normally do. This is kind of a shout out. So I hope you found that quite interesting and it's given you food for thought. So thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.